Hello nerds, JJ Kai Morris here to talk about 5 things that I've learned after 5 years writing. Sorry, I have not kept up with my channel recently. This past year has been wild. And I really meant to upload more to this channel, but I'm sorry, I didn't achieve that goal. Because this year, I'll get into it later, but yeah, it's a lot going on this year. As far as writing goes, it was the year of side project takeovers. I didn't really accomplish hardly anything that I had set out to accomplish at the beginning of the year, but I did do a lot of other stuff, a lot of other side projects. So, yeah, let's get into what I've learned. But before we do that, make sure you hit subscribe, and make sure you join my reader community. Link is down in the description. It's totally free. From there, you get access to bonus videos and a monthly newsletter from me. So let's jump into this. Okay, so at the beginning of 2024, I was like, hey, this is what I'm going to do for the year. I had all these goals written out. Did I accomplish any of them? Not really. I had the goal of one side project to finish, which I ended up doing multiple side projects, and not my main goals. My main goal for 2024 was supposed to be completing the revisions for the sequel to Trials for the Haunted, which came out in 2023. However, I didn't do that. I'll get into that in a second. I did, however, accomplish completing the first drafts for 2 different books. I wrote and published a short little audio short that I put here on this channel. One of the few videos that I did upload to this channel. And I did practice writing in a lot of new ways, which was, things that I've not tried out before, things I've not really done before. Like co-writing fan fiction. I wrote for middle grade. I worked outside my usual genre on a romance/thriller, and I did a lot of pantsing instead of plotting, which I used to be strictly a plotter. I had to have my outline, and I had to know exactly where my story was going. This year, pretty much everything I wrote, I had hardly any outline or no outline at all. So, let's talk about these things one by one. So number 1, I mentioned, was co-writing fan fiction. So I have not really written any fan fiction before. I have co-written one story before, which I was not intending to co-write it. It was just, I had sent my short story to a friend of mine who was like, hey, can I add on to it and then we'll publish it in this magazine? And I was like, yeah, sure. I don't know if that really is considered co-writing, since we didn't really collaborate much. It was just like, here's this, and then he added on to the end of it. We didn't talk to each other about how things were going to go. But a writing friend of mine, we are in love with this one work of fiction. I'm not really going to talk about it too much because I don't know if he really wants me to disclose a lot of it, because we don't know what we're going to do with it, and it's not finished or anything. But we decided we wanted to write, as a writing exercise, we were going to write a little bit of fan fiction together, and it was so much fun, and I'm really excited to get back to working on that project, just because it's fun. I don't know what we're going to do with it. Probably nothing, maybe something. I don't know if it turns out to be good. We only got, a few thousand words into it, but it was really fun, and I think it was a good exercise. And I think people really disregard fan fiction a lot as, I don't know, not being professional or real writing or whatever, but I think it's important. I think it's important to write fan fiction, or to just write whatever you feel passionate about. So if nothing else, it's a great exercise. So that's a new thing that I did this year, and kind of learned how to do, is collaborate with someone and write something with someone else, which was fun because you can bounce ideas off that other person, or if you're feeling a little bit directionless, or if you're just do you like this idea better, or do you like this other idea better, and you actually have live input. Whereas most of the time when you're just writing by yourself, it's you just have to make all these decisions on your own, and you don't know if you're making the right decision because you have no input, because you can't ask anyone for their input, because you have to give them this whole buttload of information and background for them to even understand the question. So yeah, that is one of the perks, definitely, of co-writing stories. Anyway, The second thing I learned was, learned by doing, was writing outside my usual age group and genre. So two things here. Writing outside my usual age group. So my usual age group that I write for is young adult and adult. Or kind of more like new adult, like upper young adult to adult is what I have been writing for since I started writing 5 years ago. However, this year, this story came to me and I could not resist the urge to write it. I had to write I had to get it down on paper. It's a middle grade series and I've never written for middle grade before. I'd always wanted to, but I never had pulled the trigger on it. And it's this kind of horror urban fantasy book, which I've also never written in that specific genre before. I've written horror, I've written fantasy. I've never written a kind of a horror urban fantasy before. So this was definitely fun for me. I'm really excited about the project. It's going to be a 4-book series. I have 2 of the 4 books, first drafts completed, and I need to finish the first drafts for the other 2 books before I go back and begin the revision process for them. So hopefully I'll get that done this year. I don't know if I will. But that was exciting for me because I feel like middle grade is so freeing in that you can just write. Okay, that really doesn't make any sense, but like I feel like middle grade, like you don't really have to worry about making your sentences super beautiful and pretty. Like the reader is there for the content of the story. They're not really caring so much about how good your metaphors are. So like it was kind of just like I could just dump out the story and make sure I get a really good character in there, make sure I get a good storyline in there, at least in the first draft. I'm not really worried about, getting caught up in the sentence structures or anything like that. So it was fun because I was just like, this is a book meant for, 9 to 12-year-olds. They don't care if this sentence is beautiful. They want to know what happens next. Which, of course, there's going to be multiple revisions that I can make the sentences beautiful and all that. But anyway, so the second part of this, writing outside my usual genre is I am currently working on a romance/thriller set during Christmas time. This is another side project that just took me by storm. I really resisted writing it, but I don't know. I've been dealing with a lot of insomnia lately, and I had to write it. Otherwise I would just be laying there in bed for hours just thinking about it. So getting it down on paper helps me sleep at night. I have never written something that was strictly romance or thriller. I usually stick to the horror or fantasy or science fiction genre. This one, it mostly came to me as a romance, and I've kind of turned it into a bit more of a thriller because, I wanted to add more action and more plot points into it. But yeah, I've never written anything like this before. I don't know if anything will come of it other than just me being able to sleep at night. It may be one that just stays on my laptop forever. It never sees the light of day, but hey, it's good. It's good practice. Like that's my catchphrase recently with everything. It's good practice. Okay. And number 3 thing that I've learned this year is who needs an outline? Not I. Apparently I don't need an outline. I've spent the past 4 years just being like, okay, here's my outline. I need to get my outline set before I can begin writing. If I don't know where the story's going, I'm totally lost. Which I think is true depending on the kind of story that you want to write, at least for me. If I'm writing fantasy, I feel like I really need an outline because there's so much, you need to put into the world building, and it's a lot more thought and, puzzling up front, versus if you have something set more in, present day. I feel like, which all my projects were this year, they're set in, modern time, present day, our world. And I don't feel like you don't really have to do a lot of world building. You can, if you have a magic system, you explain the magic system, but you don't have to do a ton of world building that then ties into the character, which then ties into the plot points and, and the whole plot structure. So I guess it depends on how complex your story is, or at least for me. But I feel like I was writing a little bit simpler in plot stories where I just didn't have an outline. I would like write the outline as I was going. I was like, oh, let me jot down a couple notes because I know where the next couple chapters are going to go. So let me write some notes on it, while I'm in the middle of this. But yeah, I didn't have any kind of outline, which was kind of fun. Like, I don't know. I do see why people are like, oh, having an outline kills all the fun, because it is definitely a lot of fun to like be going about your day, taking a shower, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have a great idea. I need to write this, and I'm going to write it right now. Like it's like you discover your story as you go along, and it is really fun. You discover like, oh, I had this great idea. And I wouldn't have thought of it if I were trying to, outline this ahead of time, because I didn't know this is where I was going to go with my characters, or I didn't know this is where I was going to end up being, but I'm here now, and now I have all these great ideas. So it is a lot of fun. It is also a little bit daunting, because like my current work in progress, my romance thriller, I'm about a little more than halfway, and I'm like trying to think about Act 3 and the finale, and I'm like, I don't know how it's gonna end. Like, I generally have an idea of how it's gonna end, but it's like, it may not turn out, because I don't really know. I don't know. It's kind of scary to not know. to put in all this work, these hours and hours of work, only to get to the end to be like, I dropped the ball somewhere because I don't have an ending. So having an outline, I think, takes the fear out of it to an extent, but I think it also maybe takes a little bit of the fun out of it as well. Okay, so that's my rant on that. Point number 4, talking about the fourth thing I've learned this year is learned, same thing. It was a learning experience. This one has to do with mood writing, side project takeover, and, life happening and having to roll with it. So, first thing, I made all these goals for 2024. Of course, I had a newborn. Not a newborn. Of course, I had my daughter, who is now 18 months old. So I was, being a new mom, trying to navigate when to fit in my writing time, if at all. Bombing it up. And then we also moved. We had a huge move. Moving took months. So that was like a big chunk of time where I was just spent moving. And the next thing that happened in July was I got pregnant again. So I'm currently due in April with a baby number 2. It's a baby boy this time. And so right around that time, I think July, August, I had worked on a side project in the spring, and I was like, okay, I'll let myself have this project, this middle grade story that I can't get out of my head. I'll literally just let myself write it. I'll let myself have that. And then I'll work on my main project for the year, which is revisions for the sequel to Trials for the Hunted. So it got to the summertime, and I was like, okay, buckle down. Let's get these revisions done. I was looking forward to it. And then I got pregnant, and trimester 1 is seriously the worst, at least for me. Like, okay, trimester 3 is uncomfortable, but trimester 1 is absolute hell. Just imagine being hungover for 3 months straight, all day, every day, nauseous, exhausted, hungover for 3 months straight while trying to look after a toddler. That's how trimester 1 was for me. I tried so hard to push through, to plug through my revisions, but I couldn't do it. And this happened to me, when I was pregnant with my daughter. I was like in the middle, like not middle, like beginning, middle-ish of this story that I was really excited to write. Then I got pregnant, got nauseous, and totally just dropped the project. I haven't looked at it since. Sometimes if I even think about that project, I start feeling a little nauseous because I was trying to write it when I was super nauseous. And now I think there's just this mental association with that project and being nauseous that I'm like, you know what? I need to just put this book aside. I need to take some time off because I can't do this right now. So that's what I did. That's what went on like during the summer. And that is why I didn't accomplish what I set out to accomplish this year. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. And then it came, I got through the first trimester and things got better. Nausea's gone now, finally, thank God. And then fall, so then we got into fall, and I was like, okay, I should really work on those revisions. I really, really should. But I'm starting to understand why some authors just don't finish their series. George R. R. Martin, Patrick Rothfuss. I get it. I used to be like, you are a professional. This is your job. You need to act professionally. You need to finish your projects. You need to, you know what I mean? Like that mentality of like, this is your job. This is your profession. This is your what do you call it? I don't know. But now I get it. It's like writing is art, and sometimes you have to be in the mood to create art. And if you're not in the mood to create art, it's not art. It's just something that is subpar. If that makes sense. I don't know. I was totally taken in whatever way the wind was blowing with what I was writing this year. And I think it was for the best, because I think I write my best work when I'm just really passionate about the project. That's not to say I don't think if I had a solid deadline for the sequel to Trials for the Haunted, like if I was like held to it and like, hey, you need to get this done, or XYZ is not going to happen, then I think I would have been able to push through and produce a good enough book for that deadline. But thank God I'm not on deadline. Because I don't know, I feel like I really just need to be in the right headspace for that story, and was not this year at all. And honestly, I don't know when I will be in that headspace again. Hopefully soon. Hopefully I will be soon, but I don't know. I get it now. I get why authors take forever sometimes to write sequels, or just don't end up writing them at all. Because sometimes that shit's hard, especially me, because especially like if you're someone who didn't really plan on your series getting picked up, like I didn't want to delude myself in thinking that my book was going to get published, so I didn't worry about the sequels. Like I knew, like I had like a paragraph's worth of information about what I would do in the rest of the trilogy, but other than that, it was just nothing. So I had to come up with everything on the spot, and I don't think it's my best work. I have plans for a lot of revisions that may turn it into a really good book, but as it currently stands, the file on my laptop, it's not that good. Anyway. And the next point in this whole like mood writing subject is I really increased my words per hour output this past year. And I think that has a lot to do with, one, being really passionate about the project that I'm working on, mood writing whatever came to me at the time, letting it take over. And also because I have such limited time to write. Like I pretty much only write during my daughter's nap time, which gives me an hour or two. Sometimes I can sneak in an hour, when she goes to bed, but usually I'm exhausted too. So I don't have a ton of time to write, but I do have a lot of time to think about what I'm going to write. So I think because I have so much time where I'm busy, but my mind is still kind of churning, I'm turning over the scene in my head, but when I do actually have time to write, it just flows out of me. I forget what my word per hour average was. Let me look it up here real quick. Sorry. Okay, so my words per hour average for this year was 722 words per hour. Versus usually I'm sitting at like 500 words an hour. And I think the last project that I worked on this year, my words per hour was like 800 or 900 words per hour average. Because I'm a nerd and I keep track of those things. But I think the more time that I have to prep the scene in my mind, the faster that it just flows out of me when I actually do have time to write. So anyway, that's kind of the summary. Oh, I forgot. Pregnancy brain already. I forgot to talk about the fall. Did I talk about the fall? Okay, so I abandoned my revisions in the summer, and the fall came, and I was like, yes, I should work on revisions. And then I was like, nope, book 2 of this middle grade series just has to be written. So I wrote book 2 of that middle grade series. And I kind of feel like I might get the inspiration to write books 3 and 4 sometime in this current year. But I will have 2 children come the spring, 2 under 2 for a little while, and I really don't know if I'm gonna have any time to write. I know I said this when I had my daughter, but having 2 that young, I honestly have no idea if I'm gonna have time to write. I will figure out maybe like towards the end of the year, but like when the babies are so young, they need all your time, and so it's just, and then there's 2 of them, so hopefully I will find enough time to write this year, but it's gonna be hard, but yeah, I'll figure it out. Which kind of brings me to my 5th point is being in it for the long haul. And I've tried to maintain this mentality ever since I started my whole writing journey. But this year I've really had to remind myself of it quite a bit. Is being in it for the long haul means, being patient, plugging away as much as you can, and believing that one day you'll get to the place where you want to be. But, family comes first. I have a lot going on in my life. I write when I can, but it's not like, of course I'd rather spend more time with my family than, just retreating into a corner and spending all my time writing. But as long as you're plugging away at it, and putting in the time that you do have, that you can spare, I think, I'm hoping that I'm going to, make progress towards where I want to be. Because one day, the kids will be grown and I'll have nothing else to do other than write. So that'll be good, and that'll be like bittersweet. That'll be good and bad. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I have to remind myself, like when I get frustrated that like I haven't met my goals for the year, I haven't produced the output that I wanted to. I just have to remind myself that this is the long haul. I'm not trying to get anywhere this year or next year. I'm putting in the hours, putting in the time, because I think, maybe in 20 years it'll pay off, maybe in 30 it'll pay off, and I'll be where I want to be in 30 years. But that I would rather have paid my dues now, rather than blowing up and then going nowhere after that. So yeah, just have to remind myself that I have a long time to get where I need to go. I have 20 years, I have until I'm dead. Writing is something you can do until you die. So, yeah, I have a long time to get where I want to be. I don't need to be, feeling too terrible about, not being able to write as much as I want to. But that's it. That's my year. 2024 was fun. 2025 is going to be wild, but I am definitely looking forward to it, and I'm going to try and keep you guys updated on how things are going, projects, etc. I didn't do much of that on this channel this year, but I did. If you want more updates from me, then make sure you join my reader community. Link is in the description, and it's free. But I am pretty good about sending out my monthly newsletters, not so good about uploading to this channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for your support. And yeah, well, I'll let you know how this year turns out. Anyway, till next time.